I'm sure you can easily show her.
Oh, yes, I could. Couldn't
I
I?
saw her. She was talking to me when I was stuck on
Okay,
the
we're not doing that. We're not doing that, right?
Oh yeah, I saw her talking.
We're back to serious now. My turn to talk, okay?
Maybe we.
So what we're going to be talking about, we're going to sort of talk about the things we did yesterday. We talked about some words, some vocabulary words that were important words in math and in science. Do you remember that? We talked about, somebody help me out. Length, that was one of them.
Height.
Height.
Math.
Mass. We're going to come back to that one. What else? Length and height. Let's do those first. What else matches up with length and height? Length is this way. How about the other way?
Wide.
Wide. Width. How about that?
Width.
Yeah. Okay. We talk about the width of things. How wide something is. The length of something is how long something is. But then we got talking about mass, right? And we got to talking about weight. You remember that? Yesterday we talked about mass and weight.
I was curious.
Okay, well, you're going to have to get caught up. I'll bet you'll get right on this, okay? So we talked about how something has weight, right? And we used these blocks as an example, right? And then we looked at something that was similar in size, not exactly the same size, but they're pretty close to the same size. I think we actually need 3 less. Let's try that and see, because I may have a different set of blocks here. And what we did is we compared the size of this stack to this stack. You remember that?
Yes.
We're going to pick them up so you can all see. Right? And we talked about how even though they're the same size, they are not the same weight. Because they're made out of different materials, aren't they? And if they're made out of different materials, that means they have different mass, right? So mass has to do with the weight and the size together. What's your question, Cole?
Maybe if you stand, like, make them, like, if you hold them, like, to stand up, maybe you'll see, like, maybe if they're, like, one's, like, taller and smaller.
Well, I think we're pretty close to the same size. I think this is enough to make our point, right? But they have different mass. And because they're the same size and one is heavier, this has more mass than this one. Yes, Joseph?
I know which one's lighter and which one's heavier.
Why is one lighter and why is one heavier?
Because the white is made out of foam,
Okay.
but the blocks are made out of plastic.
And that is true. They are made out of different materials. And yesterday we
And
talked about how
foam.
we could compare the materials.
Foam is lighter than
Lighter what? Lighter
plastic.
lighter than plastic, yes. But is it lighter weight? Yeah. But since they're the same size, we can also say that one has a higher mass. And what we were saying yesterday, that mass is the weight and the size combined. Okay? And we were proving this by putting something in here. Let's see. Let's do this one first.
What
Now, you noticed yesterday when we put it in there, it didn't quite move as well as it did today. I've adjusted these scales today, and they're a little bit more accurate. That's why these coins are taped to the end, because I never could get them to balance. Okay? So I put some foam in there, and this shows us that this foam has weight, doesn't it? Right? It weighs something. It doesn't weigh very much. Yes, ma'am.
I remember yesterday we wanted to make the foam go up, so we put like a lot of
We put a lot of them in there, didn't we?
the,
And it still didn't do much, did it?
Yeah.
So this is the same size, but it has a higher mass, and so we put it in here, and it goes.
What
Yeah.
the? We just made it clunk.
Yes, River?
It's too heavy.
This is too heavy, isn't it?
Yep.
So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be comparing different materials and seeing how we can compare one to another in the balance beams that I have around the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to take something that's going to be in there. Let's do one with the foam, and let's see if we can come up with something that's going to have a similar weight but not the same mass. So sometimes when they bounce, you have to slow them down. Uh-oh. Look what happened.
Uh-oh.
Even that little tiny block is heavier than this piece of foam,
Well,
What
there's
if we
two
do one of
pieces.
each?
right? So
One
that
of
it is heavier, isn't it? So what if we do what?
Put one of each.
One of each, okay. So let's do it this way. Let's do it like we had it first. Okay. Now we're gonna do one of each, like this, right? Let's see what happens.
Take the other phone away.
Take the other foam away. Okay, let's see what happens. Wow, there. Now what happens?
It's like still heavier.
It's
It's still, why is it still heavier?
Because that one still has more mass than the other one because that has nothing in
That has no mass in there, does it?
Yeah.
So could we add more to this one and find out what happens?
Yes.
So let's try those two that we already have had in there.
No more.
Should we do one more?
Yes. No, more.
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 Oh, wait. You see what's happening? Did that move? Let's do it
Yes.
again. Watch.
No.
It moved.
Close, isn't it?
More.
One more.
I think we'll need
I think I only have one more.
I want it to be the same.
Look at that. We are on the money right here. So we have, how many are in here? Can you see? Here, I'll leave that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're the
So-
same height.
So these 6 pieces that we have here have the same weight, but do they have the same mass?
Yeah.
I hear no and I hear yes. Why do you say no? Because remember, what does mass have to do with?
How many there are, maybe?
Not how
The
Kennedy, what do you think?
weight.
It does have to do with weight, but also,
And the length. And the length.
what were you going to say, Nora? Not just the length, but the length
Wait.
and the width and the height of it, right? So we have a different size than this one, but the same weight, don't we? Right, that's pretty neat, isn't it?
It's the same height.
I was gonna
The
say
same height with 3 cubes.
size and weight.
The size and weight is the mass,
Mr.
right? So these have the same weight, but not the same size, do they? So that means they do not have the same mass. Now, let's take something that's very close to the same size. What do you suppose is going to happen? Now, do you think I should get a green one? Is that a green one?
Yeah.
You think that would make a difference?
No.
Remember yesterday we talked about comparing these things,
Maybe I'm
right? And we talked about comparing the colors and the feel and can't smell them, can we?
Yeah.
We're not going to taste them.
not.
Right?
Here.
We can't hear them.
Here.
No.
See
But
them?
we can look at them and compare
We
them.
can
There
see
are
them.
differences.
I
One
can't
is
feel
made
them.
of.
You can feel them.
Tell me the difference in how they feel.
This one feels weird and this one feels like wood.
Okay,
One
one feels
is
weird, one feels like wood. Okay.
One
Ask
feels-
Olivia and see what she thinks.
It's
One feels like plastic. How could you describe those pieces you have in your hand?
because they feel like it.
Okay, so you're talking about how they feel. What about what they look like?
They look the
They look the same? Okay.
same, except for the holes.
Okay. Hannah, take those both and you tell me. Do they look the same?
No, because this one's a darker green, this one's lighter green, and this one is like a spike in the fourth, and this one doesn't like all like this thing up each side.
Okay, so they're all smooth on the sides. Some have holes. One has a little post right there.
It's a
Okay.
stick.
So why don't we try them and see if the way they look, the way that they look, will make a difference in how they weigh.
I think I know what they
What do you think's going to happen?
might be the same. They might stay like that.
Because you're getting ready to go experiment on your own. You've got all kinds of stuff up there you can experiment with.
One is heavier and one is lighter.
That one's heavier. That one's heavier because that one's lighter.
So
I already
this one
said
is
that.
heavier.
And that one
It has
More
mass.
more mass, doesn't it?
Lots of mass.
It's heavier than this one. So how much is it going to take to make them equal? Then let's get slow down. Did you see how I did this? When I put them in, it was moving up and down. So very gently. These are pretty important scales. You have to be very careful. But I'm just touching it with my finger to make it quit wiggling so much. So I'm going to go ahead and throw another one in here. So now this one is heavier. But the mass is now different, right? Because the mass of one thing is never different, right? The mass never changes of the same object, the same thing. It's always the same. Okay, but now we've added more of them, so that's why the mass is different.
But then add one more wood
Or
block.
the weight is different.
Add one
So
more
what you're going to do is you're going to be comparing different things up there.
Oh,
That one's
add one
heavier.
more there. It's heavy.
Huh?
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty close, isn't it? So now look what we have. 2 blocks of wood has the same weight as 3 blocks of plastic. Right? So you can say that 1 1/2 of one of these things, we chop it in half, would be the same as one of these blocks of wood, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to be starting on fractions here really soon. We're going to talk about how to divide things up a little bit. So over at your different stations, you have different things. There are some wooden blocks, different sizes. There are some little animals. Here we've got some Stegosaurus. I don't know how many Stegosaurus it takes to match up to a handful of bears.
One more there.
But what you're going to be trying to do is you're going to be comparing. Remember, that's what this is all about. That's what math is all about, is comparing one item
It's
to
on the
another.
money.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
kind of the same.
Okay, well, I don't know.
It's on
Is
the
it?
money. Kind of.
Is it?
Do 7 in that one and 7 in that one and see what it does.
Well, I don't know where we are. Let's see where we are so far.
7 in that one.
So we have 4 and we have 7.
Joseph.
Okay, so what we're going to do with a number that's equal. I don't have enough enough bears to match up to the Stegosaurus. That's 4 and 4. So bears must weigh more than these Stegosaurus.
Why don't you add 2 more Stegosaurus and 2
See if
more
we can-
bears?
Well, I don't have enough Stegosaurus.
And one more bear.
2 more bears. 2 more bears.
Okay, so we can say that 7 Stegosaurus is the same weight as 4 bears.
Or you could have 2.
Right? So there's all kinds of things you can compare up there. So when you put one thing in your cup, take something out and put another thing in there. How about that?
How's that going to work?
I know.
Because one of them's lighter.
Oh,
They're both light.
They're both light, aren't they? It really doesn't do a whole lot, does it?
I think the bag has lots of air.
It's on the money. On the money.
There you go. How about that?
Take this out.
That's equal. If you put that in, it's equal. Don't do that. No, it's equal.
Now it's equal.
It's pretty. When you take this off.
Almost. Are you touching it on that side, Sarah?
Girls.
Pretty close.
So, okay, so count off with me. 1, 2, 1, 2. No, wait, hold on. You're going to have to remember your number, okay? 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, all the 2 stand up over here. All the 1s stand up over here.
Am I too?
I'm a 2.
That's why I said you're going to have to remember, Cole.
I'm a 2.
Oh, the one's stand up over there. I'm a 2.
You only have 2 numbers to remember.
No, you were 2.
I'm a 2. I'm a 2.
Put a 1 in there.
2's a 2.
No, I'm 1. I'm 1 in there.
No, this is a 2.
One's over here. 1. 1 in here. 1 in
It's a 2.
here.
No, one.
Olivia. 1.
No, something's off.
We are stronger.
Cole, you come over here.
We're 2.
I'll take care of that real quick.
Because we are 2.
Last question.
Equal.
Which is going to have more mass?
This one.
This one?
Basketball.
This one. Oh, don't touch. Don't knock it out of my hand.
Basketball.
Why is basketball going to have more
Because
mass?
it's like bigger
Is it bigger?
and it's made out of
it
different
bigger?
material. No.
It's made out of different material. I love that word. Is it different?
Yeah.
All right.
That's bigger. It has
Sarah, come here. Stand right in front. Hold that in both your hands. Hold that one. Can you hold it?
Yeah, this one,
You're a people scale now.
this one's heavier. Because this one lost air.
Okay. So this one you're saying is heavier. Is that right? So because they're the same size, this one has more mass, doesn't it? All right. So I want the You two go to that station. You two to that station way up there. Yep.
How can
You two are going to that station at Mount Sinai. You two can go to that station right there. You two can go to that station right there.
Are we together?
Hannah.
Okay, wait. Mr. Folsom.
You two are going to be at that one. I think I set you over to that one.
Don't you take anything out with you.
Is it me and Austin?
It doesn't really matter. Okay, there's somebody saying at that one, you two go to this one. And then the last two can go to this one.
No, it is not.
We're going to get some things. You've got things here to try?
No. You are going to come here, and we are not going to do that again. Putting her hand on mouth scratch.
Wow.
And lunch on your lap. Right? So we're not touching anything. Chew about that. Yes, ma'am? That was not a nice thing to do. Oh, I like that word. That's right. Well, what is that? They're balanced, right? What are you saying? They're balanced.
Balance scales. Right, there's you. So I just want you to compare some things.